Marika and Godfrey, together with the demigods, did everything they could to ensure that Godwyn could be resurrected in the Chapel of Anticipation to stop Radagon and the Elden Beast. Godwyn awakens only after an eternity and has also lost all his memories. The events that led to the shattering of the Elden Ring are hardly known to anyone anymore. There are places in the lands between, forever drenched by rain, where the sky never ceases its heavy tears. The rain is a sign of mourning. The rain is a reminder of those who selflessly gave their lives and of the history that perished with them. Now, heavy rains harry the region, threatening to wash away its very history. Among other things, NIGHTREIGN tells the story of someone who narrowly escaped death. Of someone who is only alive because others sacrificed themselves for him. Of someone who must face a lord. Of someone with a companion who supports him in battle. Of someone who may eventually become a lord himself. In NIGHTREIGN, this is the story of the Wylder, a story that runs parallel to that of Elden Ring. The truth, which probably hardly anyone realizes, is that the story of NIGHTREIGN tells the forgotten story of the lands between. The story of the Wylder tells the story of Godwyn as a parallel. The tutorial itself serves as a reference to the main plot of Elden Ring. The Wylder escapes the rain, just as Godwyn escapes death. We play the tutorial with the Wylder because he represents the protagonist. He acts like a main character because he represents the story of the main character of Elden Ring. After the Wylder escapes the rain, just like Godwyn escapes death, we find a chest with weapons in front of a fortress. In this chest, we find a duelist great axe with Earthshaker and cold katar with Hoarfrost Stomp. The duelist great axe together with Earthshaker is used here to evoke an association with Godfrey. The two-headed axe is an emblem of the golden lineage and Godfrey's weapon of choice. Earthshaker is also a skill that Godfrey uses, which becomes clear in the skill Horror Loose Earthshaker. The cold katar with Hoarfrost Stomp, on the other hand, is intended to create an association with Marika. The ice theme is closely associated with Marika and is used very frequently in NIGHTREIGN to refer to Marika. I have not yet highlighted this characteristic of Marika in the past videos though. It is also a fist weapon, which is the Revenant's preferred weapon type. The Revenant is actually a parallel to Marika. The two weapons are intended to create associations with Marika and Godfrey, which enabled Godwyn to survive so that he, or rather we, could face Radagon. A little further on, in the middle of a room in the fortress, there is another chest. Inside it is Roger's rapier with repeating thrust and the Lord Swan's Firestraight sword with flaming strike. Roger's rapier is used to create an association with Radagon, as Roger is a parallel to Radagon. Lord Swan's Firestraight sword creates an association with the Lord and with fire. Here too, fire is a Radagon characteristic which I have not yet elaborated on in the videos. In addition to the two weapons, there are shattered tables in the room. The weapons and the room are intended to evoke an association with a broken Radagon in Leyndell. We also meet the Duchess, who fights alongside us against the Fell Omen, just as Melina fights alongside us against Morgoth. At the end, we sit on a chair that could represent the throne, because in a similar way, we sit on the throne at the end if we become Elden Lord. The NIGHTREIGN tutorial reflects the main plot of the story in the lands between, with the Wylder and Godwyn as protagonists in a very short and concise manner. It's incredible what's hidden in NIGHTREIGN. The community thinks that NIGHTREIGN doesn't contribute anything significant to the lore, but the opposite is true. The story of NIGHTREIGN tells the forgotten history of the lands between and the true story of the main characters in Elden Ring. Before I get into the Wylder's story, I would like to show you the parallels hidden in NIGHTREIGN. The characters in NIGHTREIGN are inspired by the hidden story of the main characters in Elden Ring and are full of allusions and references to them. The Wylder's story is inspired by the story of Godwyn. The Duchess' story is inspired by the story of Melina. Parallels can also be found for the main characters Marika, Godfrey and Radagon. The Revenant and the Recluse are both characters inspired by the true story of Marika. The Guardian and the Raider are inspired by the true story of Godfrey, and the characters Iron Eye and Executor were inspired by the true story of Radagon. Last but not least, the Iron Menial parallels the Elden Beast, which acts in accordance with the greater will and is located in Radagon, which is why he's coded with the color red. This video will focus on the Wylder as a parallel to Godwyn. I will also discuss the Duchess as a parallel to Melina and the Iron Menial as a parallel to the Elden Beast. The Are Godwyn series revolves mainly around Godwyn, but the actual story of Elden Ring is much bigger. Perhaps the illustration of the parallels will give you an impression of how big the story of Marika, Godfrey and Radagon actually is and how much undiscovered lore we still have ahead of us. This video will focus less on new discoveries this time. It will be more about the Wylder as a parallel to Godwyn. This video is intended to show that the idea of Godwyn's story is indeed present in Elden Ring. Above all, it should be clear that Elden Ring should be understood as art that invites interpretation.
You are awake. I know not why, but once again it has happened. So be it. Condemned, I welcome you to the Round Table Hold. I am the priestess, the voice of your formless master. You were chosen for your potential to vanquish the Night. The Night Lord is a living cataclysm, bent on laying waste to the very land that anchors us. Unless we bring its end, our world will be undone. And for this, I need your help.
The champion's goal is to defeat the Night Lord and stop the Night. Elden Ring's true story is about Marika, Godfrey and the other demigods who wanted to defeat the Elden Lord Radagon and stop the Golden Order. The stories of the Nightfarers as parallels are incredibly artfully crafted and contain a lot of metaphors and symbolism. Miyazaki speaks in riddles, and to truly understand Elden Ring, we must try to correctly interpret Miyazaki's words.
The Nightfarers. The will to cross the endless night and fight on. Till every shred of their being is ground away.
NIGHTREIGN in particular makes it clear that Elden Ring should be understood as art rather than just a game. Now let's move on to the story of the Wylder. To truly understand what is being told here, we have to read between the lines. Interpretation and reading between the lines are the key to unlocking the secrets of Elden Ring. Chapter 1. The Wylder departed from his faraway home, braving the sea of fog to reach Limweld. In Nightfarer's forays withered the soul in cloud recollection, causing one night to bleed into the next. But of one thing he remained certain, that he must track down the Night Lord and bury it. There was no choice. He repeated the words to himself, all the while clenching a precious object in his hand, a solitary earring, its counterpart long lost. These lines are about Godwyn, who in the distant future crosses the Sea of Fog and appears in Limgrave. Crossing the Sea of Fog symbolizes his awakening. Past events have caused Godwyn to lose his memories. Each day is just like the other. Only one thing is clear to Godwyn: he must seek the Elden Ring. However, it dawns on Godwyn that something is missing. Chapter 2. In a corner of the Round Table hold, light shines in through the ceiling to a dimly lit room. There stood the Wylder, holding the solitary earring up to the light, casting a pattern on the wall that he could not comprehend. The Wylder was sure that it was some word or perhaps a phrase, but he could not recall it. Where had he misplaced the earring? If he only had its counterpart, surely the meaning could be divined. Standing in a corner where light shines through the ceiling, Godwyn tries in vain to remember. Someone is missing from his sight, but where could he or she be? Chapter 3. He dreamt of his home, 2 horses galloping across Windwell Knoll. They were a healthy pair of twins, which was rare. To the Wylder and to the horses were special. Upon a hill there ran a priest. He looked at her, hair dancing in the wind, and saw the earring on her left ear. But he could not recall her face. "My Lord Wylder, how are you today?" The voice of the Iron Menial awakened him. Time for another errand, no doubt. The 2 horses symbolized the deep connection between the Wylder and the Duchess, or rather the deep connection between Godwyn and Melina. Both clearly meant a great deal to each other. The first part of this chapter is about Godwyn, who is asleep and dreaming about his past. Unfortunately, he can't even remember the person's face. The face of a person who apparently meant a lot to him in the past. Godwyn is then awakened by a voice. In this parallel, it is the voice of the Iron Menial that awakens Wylder. This is not insignificant information. As mentioned earlier, the Iron Menial is actually a parallel to the Elden Beast, which acts in accordance with a greater will. The voice that awakens Wylder is that of the Iron Menial. The message Godwyn receives in the Chapel of Anticipation upon his awakening is that of the Elden Beast and the Elden Ring.
Cross the fog to the lands between, to stand before the Elden Ring and become the Elden Lord.
After the Iron Menial awakens the Wylder with his voice, he asks him the following.
Wylder, I have a boon to ask of you. Would it be possible for you to procure me a whetstone? I consider it my inviolable duty to keep everyone's armaments in tip-top shape, but I'm afraid there's very little life left in the stone I have here. You have a discerning eye, do you not? Would you be willing to hunt one down for me? Simply marvelous. I advise you to make your way to the mining tunnel. The underground passageways are sure to contain ore suitable for metalwork. There are whetstones to be found there, I'm certain.
The Wylder sets off for Limweld and obtains a whetstone for the Iron Menial.
Oh, you've managed to procure one. Very kind of you. This will make repairing armaments much easier. I've little to offer, but if anything strikes your fancy, consider it yours.
The Wylder is awakening by the voice of the Iron Menial, who asks him to find a new whetstone because his old one has little life left in it. This tells the story of Godwyn, who is awakened by the message of the Elden Beast and the Elden Ring. This voice instructs him to become Elden Lord, because the old Elden Lord has only little life force left. The whetstone symbolizes Godwyn, who is to serve as the new Elden Lord, and the old whetstone, which has little life left in it, symbolizes the broken Radagon. Furthermore, a whetstone has symbolic meaning. In Germanic and Old Norse cultures, possession of the whetstone is associated with power and authority. The one who possesses the whetstone also possesses power over the clan's weapons. This symbolism is also used as a metaphor. The one who possesses the whetstone sharpens the minds of others and thus influences them. For this reason, the whetstone is a symbol of power and authority and is carried by leaders. For those of you who are interested in this symbolism, I have linked some sources in the video description. In NIGHTREIGN, many of the key items contain symbolism that is used to highlight the hidden messages more clearly. At this point in NIGHTREIGN, the whetstone symbolizes the Elden Lord who is controlled and used by the Elden Beast to exercise his authority and power. Godwyn is supposed to serve as the new Elden Lord for the Elden Beast and the Elden Ring. The slate whetstone states, Slate whetstone, a natural whetstone of high quality with a fine grain, a precious sharpening stone mined in Limweld. The clash with night has spanned eons, and yet now precious little time remains. The resistance against the Golden Order, which led to the shattering of the Elden Ring, began ages ago, but even now there is still precious time left. Is it about Radagon's dwindling life force? I'm not entirely sure whether it was luck that Godwyn was resurrected, or whether it was the Elden Beast and the Elden Ring which saw no other way out than to bless Godwyn with grace. However, it is definitely the Elden Beast and the Elden Ring whose message we hear when we awaken in the Chapel of Anticipation. The Elden Beast and the Elden Ring are trying to manipulate us with this message. Melina is the one who gives us a little clue that it is the Elden Ring and thus the Elden Beast that is calling us. Melina tells us the following.
Upon the cliff, in Castle Stormvale, is a shard-bearer, a demigod, who inherited a fragment of the shattered Elden Ring. If the rays of grace signal the castle, then the Elden Ring beckons you. As an ally by pact, I pray that you are fit to face the challenge presented by the ring.
At this point, I want to clarify that although Marika was responsible for the shattering of the Elden Ring and, in a sense, also for our resurrection, it is the Elden Ring and the Elden Beast at the moment of our awakening that manipulates us and calls us to it. In fact, there is another clue to this in the lands between. This can be found in the room of the fortified manor with the painting Flightless Bird. The four paintings, Prophecy, Resurrection, Homing Instinct and Flightless Bird, tell the story of Godwyn. The story of Godwyn as the Flightless Bird is about his death in Lane Dell, his escape to Stormvale and his expected resurrection in Stormvale. However, Godwyn falls into a deep slumber because Marika died prematurely. In the same room in Round Table Hold, we find a corpse lying in a bed. Directly above the corpse, lying in the bed, hangs a painting of the Golden Earth Tree. This corpse represents the sleeping Godwyn who is awakened by the grace originating from the Earth Tree. We now find the following item next to this corpse. Cipher Pita. One of the weapons originating from the two fingers, a formless sequence of ciphers comprise its blade, and as such no shield can repel it, deals holy damage. The furtive inscription appears to hang in the air, the language of light spoken by the two fingers. In addition, there is the coded sword, which makes it even clearer what this formless sequence symbolizes. The coded sword states, Coded sword, hidden sword once granted to the tarnished of the Round Table by the two fingers. A formless cipher comprises its blade, which deals holy damage no shield can repel. Champions would gather at the Round Table Hold in days long past, when the two fingers were masters of oration, their flesh yet full of vigor. The language of light, spoken by the two fingers, contains the words of the greater will, which they use to influence and manipulate the tarnished. The association of the greater will's influence with light makes perfect sense when you look at the mirror helmets. The cipher Pita and the coded sword represent the language of light, spoken by the two fingers, which contains the words of the greater will. The association with light is particularly important here. The mirror helmets, on the other hand, serve as protection against the influence of the Greater Will and its vessels. They are primarily associated with the properties of a mirror, namely to reflect light and thus keep it at bay. I think it becomes clear here that the language of light stands for the influence of the Greater Will, and if we now look again at the two rooms in the fortified manor and the Round Table hold, it becomes clear what the cipher Pita stands for in this constellation. It stands for the influence of the Greater Will and the Elden Beast and its words, which Godwyn perceives upon awakening. Without memories, and only with the message of the Greater Will and the Elden Ring, Godwyn, and thus we too, are manipulated into becoming the next Elden Lord. Let's return to the Wylder's story. After he has procured a whetstone for the iron menial, the latter is allowed to borrow an earring as a reward. An earring. The ornamentation seems to change with the intensity of the light.
I'm very sorry, but that belongs to the priestess. Anything else? Oh, you merely wish to borrow it. Very well. But once you're finished, be certain to return it to her.
Mended earring. With its pin repaired, this earring has been fully restored. Such ornaments were worn for generations by a distant tribe. They are delicately embellished to cast a pattern when held up to light. Closely resembles one owned by the Wylder. The Wylder can now create a pattern in the light that also contains a message. With both earrings together, a depiction of wind is projected, along with a short passage. Two horses gallop side by side. May the wind spur us on our path. The two horses galloping side by side symbolize the Wylder and the Duchess, or Godwyn and Melina. The wind that supports them on their journey symbolizes Torrent. Torrent plays an incredibly important role in the story of Godwyn and Melina. It is Torrent who brings them together after they have lost their memories of each other. When we return the earring to the Duchess, she says the following.
What's this? It must be repaired already. That barely took any time at all. Thank you for fetching it. This is a thing of great value to me. A compass that will lead me to someone dear. I suppose you're thinking that earrings normally come in pairs. Oh, forgive me. I've likely talked your ear off. We must prepare for the next battle.
The earring means an incredible amount to the Duchess and has the task of leading her to a very specific person. In her own words, a compass that will lead me to someone dear. It is the story of Torrent who brings Melina and Godwyn together. It is the story of Torrent who leads Melina to Godwyn. Chapter 4. Clutching the now solitary earring, the Wylder drifted off into sleep. The sun was setting on Windwell Knoll, and as if in deference to its name, a gale howled. The dreaded winter was approaching. By the time of the first frost, he knew that his sister would be far along her journey. The Wylder fell silent and, flashing her signature smile, flicked her earring with her finger. Goodbye for now, dear brother. Once we're done, we'll meet again. He could not remember her name, but he always remembered these parting words. Once again, Godwyn dreams of his past. As already mentioned, the ice theme is a reference to Marika. In this case, the dreaded winter is Marika who defies the Golden Order. The time of the first frost symbolizes the beginning of Marika's conspiracy against the Greater Will. Even at the beginning of Marika's conspiracy against the Greater Will, Godwyn already knew that Melina would embark on a journey with the task of a kindling maiden. The moment when the Wylder falls silent is the moment on the night of the Black Knives, when Godwyn, as a martyr, faces the power of the Rune of Death and goes through death itself to be reborn in Stormvale. Melina's last words to her brother Godwyn on the night of the Black Knives were exactly as stated here. Goodbye for now, dear brother. Once we're done, we'll meet again. It was planned that Melina and Godwyn would meet again after the Night of the Black Knives and Godwyn's resurrection, but unfortunately, things did not go as hoped. After the failed resurrection, the shattering of the Elden Ring, and Godwyn's awakening after an eternity, Godwyn has no memories of his former self. Chapter 5. The Wylder continued to fight, never mentioning his younger sister. There was no way forward except to soldier through the war at hand. He returned to the Round Table Hold that day to discover a note from the Iron Menial. I've considered what might explain your single obsession with that earring. Then it came to me. The two of you possess a striking likeness, so much that I simply cannot deny it. There's something that you must know. Please check the study. A short passage on the priestess of the Round Table. The priestess, mouthpiece of the formless master. Rooted to the Round Table, she must share its fate. A short passage on the passing of the night. Hark, warriors, fell the Lord and thy sins absolve. Upon the breaking of the night, the hold shall crumble, and thou too shalt be unbound. A short passage on the underground crypt. We lie the condemned of the first nightfall, whose sin is too great for absolution by our own deeds. Thus we shall ever guide our progeny until the night breaks. In relation to NIGHTREIGN, the Round Table Hold will decay along with the Night Lord, and the bound souls will no longer be bound and thus finally be able to rest in peace. The passages we read in the study refer to the circumstances of the Round Table Hold. The Round Table Hold is a kind of inner space belonging to Marika and the Elden Beast. Souls that have been consumed by Radagon and the Elden Beast are subsequently bound to Marika and the Elden Beast. This means that all souls bound to Marika and the Elden Beast are unable to die completely. This is also true for the Tarnished, which is why it is said, "Ye dead who yet live." The same circumstances also apply to the Elden Beast. Only when the Elden Ring and the Elden Beast are destroyed along with Marika will the souls no longer be bound and able to die. A spirit in the Ashen capital Leyndell says, "Behold, the Earth Tree yet stands, tall and unwavering, mindless of the scourge of the flame of ruin. Ha! Then we are yet golden ones." This spirit is glad that the Earth Tree is still standing. This is because the Elden Beast is the one to which Marika and thus also the Earth Tree and many other souls, such as this spirit, are bound. Only after the Elden Beast is destroyed will these souls be free and able to die. I will discuss this topic in more detail in future videos. The Iron Menial tells us the following in the crypt.
Yes, the crypt is filled with the ancient people of these lands. I still remember looking after them long ago. As you know, mortality does not apply to those such as myself. These souls will lay to rest here in anticipation of the threat we now face, in a ritual required to draw the minds of their descendants here.
From the perspective of the Iron Menial, who parallels the Elden Beast and the Elden Ring, the crypt filled with ancient humans represents the bound souls of the Tarnished and other souls, who are to rise if the Elden Ring is shattered. We find the following inscriptions on the stone coffins. The ways of cutting point to the deep woods. Bestow branches to those who are worthy and wise. The ways of cutting point to Windwale Knoll. Bestow branches to those who wander and roam. To atone for the first sin, we elect to become the foundation. The phrase ways of cutting alludes to the participants in the Night of the Black Knives. The deep woods represent a reference to the recluse who parallels Marika. Windwale Knoll represents a reference to Duchess, who parallels Melina. The inscription refer to Marika and Melina, who rise up against the Greater Will and the Elden Beast. The two stone coffins symbolize that both Marika and Melina are bound to the Round Table Hold. Despite these circumstances, both have decided to go down with the Round Table Hold and put an end to the Elden Beast. The Iron Menial continues.
Brave champion, there is something that you should know. The priestess was here long before the rest of you. Indeed, she is held captive by the Round Table itself.
So, dear caretaker let the cat out the bag. It's true. I'm imprisoned by the Round Table hold. Far from an architect of this scheme, I am merely another condemned. You may find it amusing, but it is the truth. Once we're done, it will be goodbye. The Round Table hold and I are one and the same. I am rooted to this place, my exit forbidden. I'm glad we're in this together. It could be worse. We will win this war. I promise.
Although the Duchess is aware that destroying the Night Lord will also mean her own death, she is determined to follow this path. The same was apparently true for Melina in the past. Marika and Melina were both aware of what destroying the Elden Ring and the Elden Beast would mean for the bound souls. Chapter 6. The Wylder had the same dream time and time again. A long night persists, driving his clansfolk to madness. After a horrific battle, all that remains upon Windwale Knoll is a sea of gravestones. After the deaths of cousin Farad, little Shireen, and his own father, the clan's chieftain, the Wylder discovers that only he remains. And now only he can avenge his clan, only he can bring an end to the night. But even if he can, once we're done, it will be goodbye. Even if the night were extinguished, the twin horses will never gallop beside one another again. Godwyn dreams of events in which his companions descend into madness. After the Elden Ring was shattered, the demigods received fragments of the Elden Ring. However, the fragments of the Elden Ring influenced those who carried them. That's why the following is said in the intro cinematic.
The mad taint of their newfound strength triggered the shattering.
The demigods fell under the influence of the great runes and began to wage war against each other. The characters cousin Farad, little Shireen, and the Wylder's father, the clan's chieftain, are references to Radagon, Marika, and Godfrey. Radagon, Marika, and Godfrey also either died in the course of history or fell under the influence of the Greater Will. In the end, only Godwyn remains who could put an end to the Elden Beast. However, destroying the Elden Beast and the Elden Ring also means the final death of the bound souls. That is why it is said, once we are done, it will be goodbye. Chapter 7. Holding his greatsword, the Wylder drifted off to sleep. Out of nowhere, he heard the rustle of cloth, then the clink of something being placed on the table. The Wylder awoke and slowly sat up. The note attached to the key reads, "Take this, warrior. I apologize for mine intrusion." Once again, the Wylder was awakened by the iron menial, this time by placing a key on the table along with a note apologizing for his interference. Virtuous Thief's Key. A small key featuring fine ornamentation, fine work of craft made by Gillian, the Duchess' steward and de facto patron. The Duchess once lived under the Viscount's roof, where she applied herself as a virtuous thief. She locked the tools of her trade inside a box of prized possessions, which she hid in a dim cellar. This practice has not changed since coming to the Round Table hold. She yet keeps her secrets safe from prying eyes, concealing them in darkened corners. The key opens a box that apparently belongs to the Duchess. But why is the key in Iron Menial's possession? Inside the box we find a torn out paper scrap. It reads, "Torn out paper scrap." A scrap of paper detailing the new night, written in the tongue of an ancient people. The passage, torn from its former binding, reads, "The priestess is the very cornerstone of the Round Table, indispensable. Should the Night Lord fall, the Round Table too will crumble, as their fates are together bound. Yet should the Round Table be remade, perhaps the priestess may be emancipated from her bindings. This might be done upon the falling of the new night, should the Lord's power be lost. And if so..." And this information makes it clear once again that Duchess is bound to the Round Table and will go down with it should the Night Lord fall. Supposedly, it may be possible to save the Duchess if a new knight follows and the Round Table is restored. All in all, I find this information very dubious. It was definitely not written by the Duchess herself, is incomplete, and describes circumstances that may or may not occur. In the hope of avoiding the Duchess' inevitable death, Wylder now attempts to take the Night Lord's power. He receives helpful information from the recluse.
Does the idea of leaving the priestess behind trouble thee? What a tender soul thou art. In that case, I have knowledge I would relay. Seek thee a tear of silver, but the road will be one of hardship. All the same, I wish thee good fortune, for the fortitude required is a rare thing indeed.
The fact that the recluse possesses knowledge about silver tears is considered here to be an allusion to the circumstances that Marika also possessed knowledge about silver tears.
When you first awoke, I did not believe you had any recollection of this Round Table, or those of us here, for that matter. But we have fought together countless times. Do not be afraid. Remember well that above all else we are allies. It is good to have you, once again.
The Duchess emphasizes their shared past and that they are allies, but the Wylder is apparently acting against the Duchess' wishes without telling her. While Duchess wants to defeat the Night Lord and accept her own demise, Wylder plans to take on the role of the Night Lord to ensure her continued existence. In the end, it is once again the Iron Menial who gives the Wylder the information where he will find a silver tear to become the new Night Lord.
Well, I shall expound upon the matter. I've heard stories of the Eternal City. Some postulate that the tears are the essence of life itself. If that is what you seek, then you might wish to pay a visit to NIGHTREIGN, the shrouded city, a place that was once part of a greater whole.
Wylder obtains a silver tear in the Eternal City of NIGHTREIGN. In the end, the Wylder informs the Iron Menial that he has found a silver tear. The Iron Menial tells him the following.
I see you have procured your prize. Excellent. I would do anything if it means we might save her. Blame me for putting you in this position if you will, but I leave her fate in your hands.
The Iron Menial is pleased. He would do anything to prevent the Duchess and the Round Table from falling. He even takes the blame for putting the Wylder in this situation. He wants the Wylder to become the next Night Lord, thus placing the Duchess' fate in his hands. The Iron Menial is less trustworthy than one would expect. He acts against the will of the Duchess, who wants to sacrifice herself, and manipulates the Wylder into becoming the next Night Lord. In this way, the Iron Menial ensures the continued existence of the Round Table and the Duchess. The crucial information that drives the Wylder to become the next Night Lord ultimately came from the Iron Menial. If we consider the parallels between the Wylder and the Iron Menial again, it becomes clear what story is being told here. It is the Elden Beast, represented by the Iron Menial, who manipulates Godwyn into becoming the next Elden Lord. Restoring the Elden Ring ensures the survival of the Elden Beast, Marika, and the bound souls. Chapter 8. The silver tear he grasps gently throbbed. The Wylder discovered a familiar brooch by his belongings. In his tribe, when one warrior gave such a gift to another, it was a promise to ever fight side by side, whether separated by land or sea. Did his younger sister remember such customs? He pinned the brooch to his coat, as was the practice, and gently placed his hand upon it. Once we're done, it will be goodbye. He knew the twin horses would never run free again, as once they did, side by side. But perhaps just one could gallop onward. The Wylder remembers the promise he and the Duchess made to each other, to always fight side by side, no matter what may come. However, it is unclear whether the Duchess can remember this. The brooch that the Wylder carries with him, which is part of the remembrance skin, is the Duchess brooch, symbolizing the connection. He knows that if he defeats the Night Lord, it will also mean the end of the Duchess. Once we're done, it will be goodbye. They will never be able to live freely together again. Only one of them may be able to do so. The same circumstances also affect Godwyn and Melina. Both promised each other that they would always fight side by side to overthrow the Golden Order and destroy the Elden Beast. Melina was always aware that she would have to sacrifice herself for this. The tragedy is that Melina, just like us, can no longer remember the reason for her journey. She subconsciously carries out her real duty.
Thank you for guiding me here. The one who walks alongside Flame shall one day meet the road of destined death. Goodbye.
Chapter 9. After a time, a new Night Lord came to be. The Round Table Hold, spared from annihilation, would be formed anew in preparation for a new night. But would it be enough to free the priestess? He would never know. The Night Lord lumbered on, indifferent to whether or not the twin horses would ever ride again. The Silver Tear states, a kernel of life that straddles the living and inanimate, also known as a larval tear. Once, in the lands between, it was said to have granted one a new form. It was because the Wylder was reborn as a Silver Tear he was able to take on the role of Night Lord and usher in a new night. Would it actually save the Duchess? This remains unclear. After the Wylder takes the power of the Night Lord, he ceases to be himself. The power of the Night Lord affects the Wylder and he loses his true self. In the end, he doesn't care whether he and the Duchess will ever stand side by side again. Similar circumstances apply to Godwyn. The fact that Godwyn was reborn as a Silver Tear is also the reason why he is able to become the new Elden Lord. This enables Godwyn to take on the role of Radagon. It is the Elden Beast and the Elden Ring that have been manipulating Godwyn since his awakening. If we ultimately decide to become Elden Lord, we are nothing more than the next vessel for the Elden Ring. We too will lose our own selves under the influence of the Elden Ring and be controlled primarily by the Elden Beast. It is Gideon who should have inspired such thoughts in us in the main game.
Who's to say whether we'll remain who we are once the fight is finished? What do you think? As one who aspires to become Elden Lord.
In NIGHTREIGN, it becomes clear that the ending in which Wylder takes on the role of Night Lord is not a good ending. This also corresponds to the actual circumstances in Elden Ring. Becoming Elden Lord simply means becoming the next vessel for the Elden Ring and the Elden Beast. The Dawn ending, the end of the night, is the actual good ending. But what is the symbolic meaning of it? And why is the lands between shown with the Earth Tree at the end? Let's take another look at it. The most important clues are often small and inconspicuous. Right from the first few seconds, one thing becomes clear. The relationship between the falling leaves and the grace. which seemingly brings the dead back to life. Here it becomes clear once again that the falling leaves contain the grace of the Erd tree. This is what brings the giant back to life, just as it did with Godwyn. Finally, the giant looks at the Erd tree, but turns away from it and wanders off into the distance. The complete symbolic meaning of the Dawn ending cinematic is as follows. A giant is revived by the falling leaves and the grace they contain, and turns away from the Erd tree. The Dawn ending is about the end of the night. In relation to the main game, it is about the actual good ending. It is about Godwyn, who is reawakened by the falling leaves and the grace they contain, and who resists the call of the Elden Ring. Turning away from the call of the Elden Ring to become the next Elden Lord is the actual good ending, in which the Elden Beast and the Elden Ring and Order no longer exist. The end of the Elden Ring, and thus the Age of the Stars, is the hoped-for future of Marika, Godwyn and the others. To make the parallels even clearer, I would also like to address the story of the Duchess in this video. The interpretation of the Duchess as a parallel to Melina will still be incomplete in this video, as Melina has a lot more lore than you might think. I will nevertheless note some references, but will not discuss them in detail. While the Wylder's story is about becoming the next Night Lord, among other things, the Duchess story is primarily about saving the Wylder's life. Let's take a look at the Duchess as a parallel to Melina. One of the first items we receive in NIGHTREIGN, which apparently belongs to the Duchess, is the old pocket watch. Inside it says, "Old pocket watch." A well-kept antique pocket watch engraved with an intricate design, likely a prized possession. The influence of the encroaching night clung to the expecting woman, preventing her from ever giving birth. The only means to break it meant the sacrifice of her life. But the curse of night lived on, in both the orphan and in this keepsake, whose hands tell only twisted time. This dark power is both a badge of lost innocence and the very thing that allows its owner to fight back. The old pocket watch, described as a prized possession, is what the Duchess had actually hidden in the box. The choice of words, prized possession, is exactly the same as that used in the Virtuous Thief's Key. Virtuous Thief's Key. The Duchess once lived under the Viscount's roof, where she applied herself as a virtuous thief. She locked the tools of her trade inside a box of prized possessions, which she hid in a dim cellar. It was the old pocket watch that was hidden in the Duchess box, and the only explanation for why the key was with the iron minion and how the old pocket watch could have gone missing is that it was the iron minion. The iron minion made the old pocket watch go missing and put the torn out paper scrap in its place to manipulate the Wylder. It is the old pocket watch, a tool belonging to Duchess, which she uses as a thief and which defines her as the thief that she is. The Iron Menial, on the other hand, wants her to remain solely the priestess and was the one who talked her out of being a thief. Only when she got her pocket watch back from us did she resume her role as a thief. She dislikes the role of priestess. It was the Iron Menial who forced her into the role of the priestess. Here again is the moment when we return the pocket watch to the Duchess.
I've had quite enough of all the ceremony. Now I'm ready to get my hands dirty.
Let's now take a closer look at the description. The description tells of a woman who was supposed to give birth to someone but was prevented from doing so. In the end, she had no choice but to sacrifice her own life to give life to a certain someone. Do these circumstances sound familiar to you? It is about Marika, who was supposed to give Godwyn new life, but Radagon's Golden Order prevented her from doing so. In the end, Marika had no choice but to sacrifice her life and shatter the Elden Ring in the hope that Godwyn would eventually be resurrected. The dark power and the purple stone in the pocket watch are a reference to Melena's purple eye. The parallel now makes even more sense. Just as Duchess hides her old pocket watch with the purple gemstone containing dark power, Melena hides her purple eye, which is connected to destined death. So let's take a look at the story of the Duchess as a parallel to Melena. Chapter 1. A letter from the Iron Menial, written shortly after the Duchess was summoned to the Round Table Hold. We have awaited your arrival with great anticipation. As priestess, you shall guide the Round Table Hold to victory over the Night Lord. I was chosen to assist you in whatever way I can. The garden is graced with beautiful flowers, and the study filled with rare books, new and old, by all manner of authors and on every subject fathomable. If I may ask, what are your preferences for meals? I will serve whatever you wish. One last thing, perhaps you'd be amicable to a change of attire. You are a righteous thief no longer. Now you are the honorable priestess of the Hold. From the last lines, we can see that it was the Iron Menial who imposed the role of priestess on the Duchess. However, I would like to highlight one other line. The Iron Menial asks the Duchess about her preferred meals. This topic will become important later on. Chapter 2. A letter from the Iron Menial, written after the Wylder was summoned to the Round Table Hold. I trust that our newly welcomed champion has had a moment to gain his bearings. He appears to have sustained injuries in the outside world before he was drawn here. Rest assured, I will make certain that he is properly cared for. In any case, I am delighted to welcome a new Nightfarer to our family. He seems to be the master of a very large sword. No doubt, he will make good use of it in our campaign against the Night. This chapter makes it clear that the Wylder has suffered serious injuries, but also possesses a large sword which symbolizes the Wylder's great strength. The Iron Menial wants to take care of the Wylder. Chapter 3. A routine letter from the Iron Menial concerning everyday affairs. Baking the bread you requested is proving to be far more difficult than expected. I've recruited the Raider to assess the results of my trials, and surely this will help me approach your specifications. Which reminds me, the Raider said he wishes to speak to you about something. Perhaps you might pay him a visit? Here too, there is talk of a specific meal that the Iron Menial wants to prepare. The Iron Menial is having difficulty finding the recipe for a very specific type of bread. The Raider seems to be familiar with the taste of this bread.
You have a moment. Something's been troubling me. Maybe you could help. It's the lad with the great sword. He seems off. just stares into the distance when I talk to him. I have an inkling the constant combat might be taking its toll. Maybe you'd have better luck than me if you tried to get him to talk.
This part of the story, as a parallel, is about Godfrey, who is concerned about Godwyn's condition. Godwyn may have arrived in Stormvale, but without Marika he cannot be fully reborn.
Well, I take it you need something. Come back once I've finished mending my tools. Alright?
The statement that the Wylder will only be ready to talk again once he has finished repairing his tools is a metaphor. It refers to Godwyn, whose soul is struggling with death and needs healing.
So, how was he? Not looking good, I take it. Times like these, finding something simple to focus on can help clear the mind. Maybe you could get him something to tune up his weaponry. Keeping a trusted tool in top condition always makes me feel better, for one.
The Duchess procures golden dew for the Wylder to repair armaments. The golden dew states, liquid plant extract that is highly effective at repairing armaments. Harvested in indeterminate locations across the lands between, but only by those who are aware of its useful properties. This viscous oil can be extracted by squeezing the flower, seeds and all. Some call the liquid golden dew owing to its lustrous yellow hue.
I can use that, but where did you learn it works for weapon care? Did I? Well, not that it matters. Here you go. A token of thanks.
The use of repairing weapons is still the same metaphor at this point. It is about healing Godwyn's condition. The Duchess receives faded iron coins in exchange for the golden dew. These coins say, faded iron coins of a faraway land received from the Wylder. A nomadic tribe used these coins in trades with settled tribes to purchase supplies to support their isolated lifestyle. These coins, produced from the Wylder's pocket, are icily cold. The Duchess receives these coins after presenting the Wylder with the golden dew. These coins are described as ice cold. I am sure that these coins represent references to Godwyn's survival and the plan of Marika. For this reason, the coins are described as ice cold. The ice theme is also used here as a reference to Marika. One of the coins depicts the wings of 3 hawks and a crescent moon. Another depicts a kind of dragon. The third and most clearly depicted coin represents wind in a simplified way. This coin reappears at the end of the Duchess' remembrance and apparently symbolizes Torrent, who ultimately brings Melina and Godwyn together and thus plays an incredibly important role in Godwyn's survival. This part of the remembrance parallels the event in which Melina is giving Godwyn the flasks of crimson and cerulean tears. These are far more significant than one might initially think. The coins symbolize various things that ultimately contributed to Godwyn's survival. These are described as ice cold because Marika was the one behind the entire plan for Godwyn's resurrection. The Duchess then speaks again with the Raider, the Revenant and the Iron Menial.
Managed to help our friend, did you? Thanks. I like a woman who wants to pitch in. Let's see how things are going to play out before we meddle any further. And pray the passage of time does our work for us. One more thing. The doll's looking for you. Go and see her.
There you are. Forgive me, but I didn't want anyone to overhear. The Wylder won't remain among the living much longer. The vitality in him is all too little. All that's left is the lees. In this form, I am attuned to life's ebb and flow. As the Round Table's custodian, you must decide on the proper course of action. It is your choice whether to allow him to continue fighting.
Is something the matter, my lady? His vitality ebbs low, does it? There is no cause for concern. He is yet able to fight. However, Should we accomplish our great mission and cast down the Night Lord, he will depart this life. Even so, we must continue to walk our path. That is your ultimate desire, is it not?
The Iron Menial points out to the Duchess that the Wylder will depart this life at the end of his mission. Could it be that the Iron Menial is trying to manipulate the Duchess and talk her out of any hope of Wylder's recovery? Is the Iron Menial telling the Duchess this because he already expects the Wylder to take on the role of the next Night Lord? Chapter 4. A letter from the Iron Menial that appears to have been rewritten several times. I know you are worried for the Wylder, but such things happen more than you might imagine. It appears that the injuries he sustained in the outside world before his arrival here have made him terribly weak. If we should defeat the Night Lord as we yearn to do, I am afraid the Wylder may not return alive. And yet we must carry on, as tragic as it is. This chapter makes it clear that the Iron Menial is trying to talk the Duchess out of any hope for the Wylder's recovery. Chapter 5. A letter from the Iron Menial written in an anxious, scrawled script. My Lady Priestess, I am well aware of your grave concern for the Wylder. You should know that when I checked in on him, he appeared to be making preparations of his sort. And today, he is nowhere to be seen. The Wylder's weakened constitution places him at risk. Please seek him out. He should be somewhere inside the Round Table Hold. This chapter is particularly important. It states that the Iron Menial is worried and has anxiously written down his words in the letter. He observed the Wylder making preparations and then disappearing. In these circumstances, parallel Radagon and the Elden Beast, who were deceived by Godwyn and the others on the night of the Black Knives. Godwyn has disappeared and Radagon and the Elden Beast are clueless where he might be. When we set out as the Duchess to search for the Wylder, we discover that the Wylder has left footprints behind. Some manner of powder has been spilled. Footprints can be seen leading on. In exactly the same way, Godwyn has left traces, which we found in the form of posthumous insists of the Prince of Death. Furthermore, the Wylder seems to have cooked something. The work surface still feels faintly warm. A rich aroma drifts from somewhere. Finally, the Wylder is found hidden against the wall, and the Duchess tastes the bread baked to perfection. The taste is a wistful reminder of childhood.
That's how we make it, back at home. Good, right? I'm glad you like it. Have as much as you want. I made more than I need. My mother taught me the recipe. It keeps well and won't leave you hungry. Just something I like to do. To remember and to clear my mind.
The bread in question is the following. Pita bread. Flat bread with a rich aroma offered by the Wylder. The traditional food of a nomadic tribe from a distant, vast grassland, passed down from mother to son. I know this, the gently sweet and salty flavor of this pita. Baking the pita bread is a metaphor for realization of the Night of the Black Knives. This is now the third time that the cooking metaphor has been used. In previous chapters, we already identified the cooking metaphor in the Horns and Grandam and Scorpion Stew, as well as in Big Boggart and the boiled prawn and crab. The Horns and Grandam and her Scorpion Stew represents Marika planning and executing the Night of the Black Knives. Big Boggart, together with the boiled prawn and crab, represents how Godwyn was also involved in the Night of the Black Knives and played the central role. The cooking metaphor in NIGHTREIGN is about Godwyn, who cooks the Night of the Black Knives and got the corresponding recipe from his mother. In addition, pita bread, which is also considered the oldest bread in the world, has cultural and symbolic significance. In many Middle Eastern traditions, sharing pita bread is an act of profound communal bonding. Breaking bread collectively, a ritual practice across cultures, takes on heightened significance with pita representing shared historical past, collective identity, and familial connection. The recipe is usually passed down by the mothers. The Wylder shares his bread with the Duchess, which highlights their family bond. The fact that the Duchess is familiar with this bread symbolizes how Melina was also involved in the Night of the Black Knives and knew about the plan. The raider, and thus Godfrey, is also familiar with the taste of the bread as mentioned earlier. The recipe ultimately comes from the Wylder's mother, a reference to Marika as Godwyn's mother. The Duchess then goes to the Areminial.
Is something the matter, my lady? I see. The Wylder cooked up something that reminded you of your childhood. Now, I don't suppose... Well, unless... Who provided you with the food in question? Oh, then the two of you must be... I am in disbelief. It's nothing short of a miracle. Now, though this is by no means bad news, I must press upon you. We are here to bring an end to the Night Lord. Do not let this revelation tempt you from the path.
In the end, even the Areminial learns that the Wylder is Duchess' brother. The Areminial, trying to figure out the recipe, represented how Radagon and the Elden Beast tried to uncover the real events of the Night of the Black Knives. Just like the Areminial discovers that the Wylder and the Duchess are sister and brother, the Elden Beast and Radagon too discover the true events of the Night of the Black Knives. Chapter 6. A letter from the Areminial, written with even greater care than usual. Those who fare against the night find that even their most cherished memories eventually dissipate. It is nothing less than a miracle that you've restored your memories of your brother. I understand how concerned you must be for what lies ahead, but there's one thing we must never forget. We were beckoned here for one reason, and one reason only, to bring an end to the Night Lord. Many among us are gravely concerned for you, my lady priestess, the raider especially so. Perhaps you should lend him your ear. A hastily written scribble that reads, "Cowardice ill becomes you. I await you at the shore." The Revenant challenges the Duchess. They both fight.
I yield. Do you see now? You are strong, and only the strong can wield true power. The weak have no such privilege, but with strength comes the burden of duty. Did it never occur to you that this is precisely why you are here? Take this, if you understand me. Now, not a word of this to anyone.
The Duchess then received the crown medal from the Revenant.
You really don't hold back, do you? I was only trying to give you a nudge, and you practically ground me into the dust. Well, now I know where I stand in your eyes.
How about we take to the seas together? You remind me of Weather Vane. I could see you reading the winds just as well. What say you? What is it now? Got something funny to say? Apparently not. Go on then, spit it out. The two of you were brother and sister all along. Reminds me of an old tale, if you'll indulge me. I wasn't much of a pirate, but out at sea every man who toiled by my side was my brother. There was this younger kid who looked up to me. Must have figured me for an older brother. Till one day, we had a falling out. Things got so bad, the sailors snuck off on land without saying a word. I didn't think much of it. Thought it was a bid for a little attention. But I never once saw the kid again. When you let your passions get the best of you, things have an awful way of going south. Keep your cool, lest you do anything you come to regret. All right, a meager lesson it might have been, but perhaps you'll glean something from it. Worry not, that's all I've in mind to teach right now. Thanks for letting me bend your ear.
At this point, the raider compares the Duchess to Whetstone. In fact, Whetstone is also a parallel to Melina. The story of the raider and Whetstone also reflects events from the forgotten history of Godfrey and Melina. Then the Duchess is visiting Whetstone's grave and receives Whetstone's words. Whetstone's words, the dying words of the apprentice Whetstone, addressed to a former mate. Captain, I've found a wind that carries me farther, faster. Whetstone's fascinations changed like the days of the week to the chagrin of the single-minded crew, but not being one for regrets. The first mate was unperturbed by what others said. Going by the self-appointed title of Apprentice of a Great Pirate, Whetstone found that dreams could come true even if they might take a lifetime. No wonder she so cherished the wind. Here again it is about Melina, Torrent, and her wish to help Godwyn to survive. To perhaps make it clear to you that Whetstone also reflects part of Melina's story, I would now like to show you the corresponding reference in the main game. There's also a very special gravestone in the lands between. In the minor Erdtree church, we found the echo in which Marika talks about exploring the roots of the Golden Order. This was the moment when Marika discovered the terrible truth and began her rebellion against the Greater Will. Marika and Melina began to resist the Greater Will and forge a plan. And it is exactly here that we find a solitary gravestone. At this gravestone we find 3 smoldering butterflies. This grave is dedicated to none other than Melina. Here too, the number 3 is used to create an association with death. The smoldering butterfly symbolizes Melina as a kindling maiden. After the Duchess visits Whetstone's gravestone, she speaks to the raider again.
How about we take to the seas together? You remind me of Weathervane. I could see you reading the winds just as well. What say you? Are you sure of this? Damned fool. Why not just tell me? The kid went out like a warrior. Not the bad way, all things considered. Thank you. I might never have known, and didn't expect to. That settles it. Now I'm sure. Take this, would you? You said you were on the fence. Well, my advice has changed. I say refuse the choice. Who says that when you choose one path, you forego the other? It's your journey. Take all the paths you like. I know you won't let it come to nothing. Take it from me. You'll be good as gold.
I will discuss the symbolic meaning of the double-sided coin and present the complete interpretation of this part of the Duchess story in future videos. Chapter 7. A letter from the Iron Menial that was torn up and discarded without ever reaching its addressee. As you are well aware, my lady priestess, you are bound to the Round Table Hold. But if the object were not born of flesh and blood, it could venture beyond the Round Table Hold. But to make such a thing possible, the Duchess clutched the paper scraps in her hand, as if clinging to a fleeting dream. This chapter deals with a piece of information from the Iron Menial that was torn up and discarded. The Iron Menial ultimately did not want this letter and this information to reach the Duchess. However, the Duchess found it and is still clinging to a fleeting dream, to save someone very special. Chapter 8. A letter from the Iron Menial that was torn to pieces, then later patched together. But to make such a thing possible, to connect the Wylder in the outside world before he draws any closer to death, we require a fetish. Such a bond could be established if the object that he kept on his person was to receive a blessing. But the chances of success are slim indeed, and I cannot bear to think of leaving you, Lady Priestess, all alone. Blessed iron coin. An iron coin imbued with a small blessing by the priestess, emits a faint warmth. The girl made a wish to the mechanical doll, that a blessing would reach him, a blessing that could open the eyes of one who is already dead but refuses to accept it. We receive the blessed coin from the golden shadow in the round table. This golden shadow represents Marika. If we take a closer look at the coin, we can see that it is the coin with the symbol for wind. The golden shadow that gives Duchess the blessed coin with a symbol for wind represents Marika, who sends Melina together with Torrent on her way to Godwyn. This happened shortly before Marika shattered herself and the Elden Ring. On the one hand, Marika tasked Melina with finding Godwyn using Torrent. However, the blessing that Godwyn receives after the shattering of the Elden Ring unfortunately comes with the manipulation of the Elden Ring. This is why the language of light is also depicted. Ultimately, there was no other way to resurrect Godwyn. The Duchess finds a note from the Iron Menial. A note from the Iron Menial which reads, "I am gone to tidy up the crypt below. I hope you too are making the occasional visit, my Lady Priestess." The fact that the Iron Menial is cleaning the crypt symbolizes that the bound souls will soon begin their task. The tarnished will soon rise because the Elden Ring will be shattered.
My Lady Priestess, finally you are here. When the Round Table's purpose is served, each sin is absolved and everyone is sent back. The Round Table itself will become unmoored from the outside world. I suspect nothing of this place will remain, unless the impossible should occur. My lady, I shall accompany you till the very end. What have we here? Are you asking that I go to the Wylder? I must refuse. If I did, you would be left truly alone, my Lady Priestess. It is much too cruel. Much too cruel.
This part is about Melina wishing for the shattered grace to find its way to Godwyn. To do this, however, Marika must shatter herself and the Elden Ring. The fact that the Iron Menial initially resists shows that this is not in the Elden Beast's interest. But in the end, it should still happen. Marika gained the upper hand and shattered the Elden Ring.
Apologies for my petulance just now. I should respect your wishes. Of course. I will see the task is done.
The Duchess then meets the Wylder.
I know. You don't need to tell me twice. It's the whole reason I'm here. I vow to slay the fiend with my own two hands.
After meeting with the Wylder, the Duchess speaks to the Iron Menial again and shows him the barret she received from the Wylder.
What's that you're sporting? Did you pinch it from the Wylder? That was hardly very becoming of you. Fine. I'll keep mum for now. You remain as extravagant as ever. Oh, most ambitious madam. I'll always remember that side of you.
The fact that the Iron Menial dislikes Duchess' appearance together with the barret from the Wylder is further evidence that the Iron Menial has something against the connection between the Wylder and the Duchess. It is the connection between Melina and Godwyn that makes it possible to put an end to the Elden Beast. Chapter 9. A letter addressed to the Iron Menial. To a dear friend who has always been true, please follow the blessed bond and safeguard my brother's life. To this end, We must first lay the Night Lord to rest. We need not sacrifice one goal for the other. We can achieve both. My resolve no longer wavers, not while I am graced with this barret. The first line contains hidden irony, as the Iremenial is actually the one who acts manipulatively and aptly represents a parallel to the Elden Beast. The blessing that the Wylder is supposed to receive is the scattered grace that Godwyn is supposed to receive and ultimately comes from the shattered Elden Ring. The shattering of the Elden Lord Radagon and the Elden Ring is ultimately also the event that will hopefully awaken Godwyn again. Melina's faith and bond with Godwyn is what gives her strength. If you look closely at the Duchess barret, you can see that it is the Wylder's belt buckle. Both have given each other a piece of the clothing, symbolizing their faith in each other. Even the design of the champions and their abilities reflect some parts of the hidden story of the corresponding parallels. The Wylder as a Godwyn parallel, for example, has the abilities Sixth Sense, which allows to cheat death a single time, Claw Shot, which launches a grappling claw to rope foes in or move swiftly by retracting, and Onslaught Stake, which is a powerful single attack that launches an iron stake with a great explosion. The Sixth Sense ability fits perfectly with Godwyn's story, which is about how he escaped death. The Claw Shot fits Godwyn incredibly well with the story of the flightless bird telling the story of Godwyn's escape. The Onslaught Stake ability uses the device on Wylder's arm. This represents a winged creature whose head resembles a dragon. This could also fit Godwyn's story. We also find symbolism on the weapons, which serve as references to Godwyn's story. The hilt of the Wylder's greatsword resembles Marika's crucified posture. It is also corroded by the power of the night, symbolizing Marika's death. The half of the greatsword corroded by the power of the night represents Melina's death. The description states, Wylder's greatsword, a single-edged greatsword that is tattered and dull, worn beyond repair but ingrained with unrelenting vengeance. This weapon recalls the numerous foes felled by the Wylder. Strike, smash, gouge, any foe's game, as long as a weapon is handy. The deaths of all his companions, including Marika and Melina, turned the Wylder, and therefore Godwyn, into the last Revenger. The Wylder's shield seems to contain a reference to Torrent. The description reads, Wylder's small shield, a small wooden round shield. It is light and easy to handle, but cannot offer the damage negation of a metal shield. The crest on the shield, of a particular style of a faraway land, is interpreted as a depiction of grasslands and blowing winds. It's not just because it depicts blowing winds that is probably a reference to Torrent. The three figures on the shield are reminiscent of horse heads. The three horse heads symbolize Torrent's death. Torrent also died a long time ago and only then became the spectral steed, just as Melina died and subsequently only appears as a spirit. The horse crest wooden shield in the main game was probably already hinting at the same circumstances. Here too, it already hinted at Torrent's death. In addition, the Wylder's small shield also features a depiction of wind with 4 lines. These symbolize the great fortune that Torrent continued to exist as a spectral steed and supported Godwyn and Melina in their fight against the Elden Beast. There are also small references in the dialogues and other places. Between the Wylder and the Iremenial, the one who awakens the Wylder in his story, is the church bell symbol of Stormvale. A small reference to the circumstances in which Godwyn is awakened by the message of the Greater Will and the Elden Beast. When talking to the Wylder, he tells us the following, among other things.
We've seen our share of sacrifice, but we always knew there would be a cost. I ask myself how I'm still alive, and all I can think is sheer luck.
It is a reference to the circumstances that Godwyn survived only by sheer luck, and was resurrected in the end. It is a reference to all the clues associated with the number 4, whereby the number 4 stands for great luck. The Revenant also alludes to the circumstances that she and the Wylder are seeking revenge. In reality, it is about Marika and Godwyn who are seeking revenge.
My resentment has festered far too long to be so easily assuaged. You as well, if my instincts still serve me.
The Revenant is a parallel to Marika, and Miyazaki and FromSoft didn't hype up the Revenant trailer for no reason. They released the Revenant trailer last and even produced a completely separate trailer with the soundtrack Bring Me to Life for a reason. Do you really think this was just a fun idea? The trailer shows the Revenant resurrecting the Wylder, because in reality it's not about the Revenant and the Wylder, but about none other than Marika and Godwyn. It's still about the same story. The story of how Marika sacrificed herself and shattered the Elden Ring to bring Godwyn, who was slumbering in the Chapel of Anticipation, back to life.
How can you see into my eyes like open